And we're back. Pulp Culture Conversations, episode 4. And Secret Invasion, episode 4. We started at the same time. So, let's get our quick impressions. Bone?
I would say that some of the acting is really, really great. I think that there's a scene and interaction between Fury and his wife in the beginning, and then towards the middle of the show. It's really great. I would say that I don't like to be a negative person. I don't like to, trash things. So I'm struggling to find great things to say about the show. Some of the cinematography is great. Like whenever they're focusing on Fury in the background of blurry, that's a really nice thing, It's like the camera work is really great.
So the episode was shorter than the other episodes. Without getting into too many details, I liked the episode to the point that there was one piece that I expected, and it came the way I expected it to be. Going into your conversation last time about believability and non-believability, this episode had some points that were just stupid, just over the top stupid to me, like really stupid, and which we'll get into as we talk about the show. Like I said last time, they're running out of characters. They're running out of characters quickly, and to me, it's looking like this only has one possible ending. The way this is, I can only see one ending for this, and I'm so far 4 episodes in, and I'm not. I really hope the next 2 episodes are better than that episode.
I don't understand where all this hate is coming from, man. I thought it was a great episode. I mean, listen, I would it was a little longer. Okay, I'm going to focus on talking slower. I would it was a little longer, but I thought it was a great episode. Obviously, like everybody a lot of the theories were out there about Gaia, and that came true pretty quickly. And like we were right that there was no way they were going to end that character off. And then obviously Rhodey being a Skrull. And that's why I had said, because the way they've been setting it up, where the last one they set it up like, oh, is he a Skrull? And then they verified it in this one that probably next week they're going to show when he was replaced, at what point he was replaced, and we'll probably get that verification. And then there was a nice little action scene there. I mean, it was the plot is moving fairly slowly. That's true, but I don't know. I liked it. I'm not like it's not the best thing Marvel's put out, but it's watched. Like I would watch it again. Like I would watch it. Like it's a watchable series to me. Like I enjoy it. Like it's not. Like it's not as like I'm not like on the edge of my seat like I am with some of the other things they've done. It isn't as massively eliciting of emotion and like as crazy enjoyable as some of it, but it's better than a lot of the other ones. I'm surprised at some of the ratings because like it's better than stuff like the She-Hulk and the Marvel and all the stuff they were doing there to me. So I'm curious what were the things that you thought were just like absolutely stupid?
Do you remember whenever he used the Groot power to grab the guy? Well, first of all, that whole scene, the way it's set up, it's like everyone is 100 feet from each other. There's 45 guys with guns, and they're all like the guy goes, he holds the rifle, he's all, Fury's here, and when he could have just shot him right there, he's got the gun, he's like looking, he's like, oh, Fury's here, and meanwhile, Fury gets away, he could have just shot him. It's like all these, the whole scene, the way it's set up. Because look, I understand when you have a small amount of money for a show, you have to make some sacrifices. But it seems like this company should have been able to film that scene to make it look like it was somewhat believable. I mean, the president of the United States is just going through the Black Forest of Germany, just lollygagging around, and there's like a helicopter strolls up. I mean, it's like you would think about this, right? Fury knows that the Gravik has the powers, right? Because he stabbed him in the hand. And so the Fury's the guy who foresaw...
No, Talos stabbed him in the hand.
Was it Talos? Okay,
and he wasn't there for when he healed, so he doesn't know that he has the powers. We know that he has
this
the
is where
powers.
Bones' memory fails.
Talos doesn't have the powers. So
Talos never told him that.
no, Talos doesn't know he has the powers.
Okay, so that makes sense. Then that was a
Okay, see,
misunderstanding.
this is honestly like respectfully, it feels kind of like nitpicking because to me, there's a lot of series where convoys with the president, special convoys, are driving somewhere and a helicopter and a group comes and attacks them. To me, the more question, like the questions a person would be having, I understand is like, but if you're coming in with a group of Skrulls, you know, you're gonna recognize that if there's any sort of resistance, one body's gonna get left at some point. So you're kind of that part to me. If you're coming in that direction, that part to me is like there's other scenes. There have been a couple of scenes that I could that you haven't said anything about. You haven't said about, like the scene that I saw in that direction, like the scene when in one of the past episodes when Gaia breaks into the place and she walks with the two guards and she attacks the one guard. And the one guard just kind of stands there until she's done, and then he swings his gun at her, and she grabs his gun. And like, there's some scenes like that. So it's like, and y'all haven't mentioned those, but that are where I get where it's like choreographed. To this one, to me, I mean, I didn't see it that way. Like you know, when we had watched it, it's like, it's not crazy to me that there's a vehicle with the anti aircraft weapon in the convoy of the president. It's not crazy to me. They're trying to prevent a war, so they're driving to, and the president does travel like that. They're driving to meet with the Russian Federation, so delegation. So to me, respectfully, it feels almost at points. It feels almost like nitpicking because I don't see it that way. I don't see it as being out of the ordinary, out of the show. I personally do think that there is a lot of talking. There's a lot of like just slow moments. Great acting, but there's a lot of talking. But I didn't see it that way as a massively unbelievable scene.
So so the beginning with Gaia, when they show the flashback of her getting the extremist powers, and that kind of cemented the fact that she obviously wasn't dead, and maybe it was the first time she had used the powers, which is why it dropped her as fast in the end of the last episode. That was fine. I expected that. The Don Cheadle character, obviously he's a Skrull working for Gravik, and he walks up and is like, yeah, kill Fury, or one of the two people in that house are getting a bullet. So I was like, all right, so that was just like we talked about. He's a Skrull. He's obviously a bad guy. So that didn't bother me either. And I like the way they did the stuff with Fury and his wife and how they were kind of reconciled at the end of that. Then it goes to Gaia and Telos, and they have their conversation. And Gaia's obviously thinks her dad's entire plan is BS. And be honest with you, if that's the entire plan that Telos has for the remainder of the Skrull people is, well, we're just going to keep doing what we've been doing, which hasn't worked since 1995, and we're in the same spot we've been in, and the one person that was on our side is wanted number one. I mean, that's a pipe dream. We saved you. Give us a little province or an island or a city or something, or help it. I agree with Gaia. That was stupid. They could have. It's almost like it was a cop out in that. Then, when you move past that, and you get to the point where I thought the Fury thing, dropping the serum or whatever to be able to track Rhodey was cool. That way they'd have an idea of where it was going. And Don Cheadle's the Rhodes Skrull is just sitting in the car for the entire combat sequence of the Secret Service and this Russian air assault that's taking place in England, by the way, not the Black Forest of Germany. But and I'm like, I will say that the pop-up anti-aircraft missile launcher in the back of the one truck was, to me, I was like, really? That's silly. But again, like you were saying, if it's the President of the United States in England, there would be some sort of air cover if they had some long drive to make. And I'm like, where are they going? I'm like, who knows where they were going? Because they obviously landed at an Air Force base and were going somewhere. But just that whole scene then, when Gravik uses the powers to kill the one guy, I'm like, all right, well, you're obviously not the Russians now, so your whole plan to pretend to be the Russians is bogus because you're not the Russians. You're obviously not. And you're not killing everybody here, so somebody's going to be there. And all the dead scrolls that are now littering your side that you left behind. So part of the whole concept of these movies and TV shows is suspending your disbelief to enjoy something. But there are so many plot holes.
So, okay, it is, to me, it was weird to pull out the group powers and only kill one guy. that was kind of weird. I think that, but listen, okay, I think that there's to me, in what you said, there are plot holes and the things that aren't plot holes there. Like the whole rocket in the back of the truck thing. I think you're completely off on that. They showed that from the beginning. So from the beginning when they drove off, you could see that. So it wasn't like it was hidden and it popped up. From the beginning, you could see that. And I don't think that's unrealistic and insane, considering the remote control weapons we have. The air support might be a point. And they do eventually get the air support because, as you saw in the end, the helicopters run up. And then I think because he jumps out and does the Groot thing after he realizes Nick Fury showed up, because Nick Fury knows about him. So once Nick Fury shows up, that's when he stepped down and did the Groot thing. But again, I do agree with certain the aspects of the plot holes there, as far as obviously the president's going to be in an armed convoy and you show up with Skrulls. The probability is you're planning to take them all with you and kill everybody in there, but it doesn't seem likely. It does seem pretty dumb, like we talked about. His plan, is his plan. His plan sometimes there are these holes there, right? But I do think that it is on the other side. When you have the series like this, it needs some action. It needs that. So there are points there. I get that. You have points, which as far as there are some plot holes there, and really that whole setup wasn't really set up. That whole fight wasn't really set up that well. Outside of we had all the stuff going on, and then we basically come into the president's here. Oh, he's going to do a negotiation. We don't know where that is. We don't know all the information. It just kind of popped up that, Nick Fury finds out last minute because he doesn't know. He's following Rhodey, and then because you see he's following Rhodey and the convoy, and then he hears and he pulls off and speeds off, and so he didn't know that there was a plan to attack the president.
So that's the next piece. Rhodey sat in the back of that convoy, never got out of the car, and just sat there for the whole thing. That ended with Nick Fury and the president and Fury's car. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if Fury drives off with the president.
No, I think that's his obvious.
I think that because I think at this point he knows that James Rhodes is a Skrull, and he's out to kill him. The president, they obviously were trying to either kidnap the president or kill him. They were trying to kill the president and make it look like the Russians did it to start the war. So, I get it, but at this point, when you don't have Nick Fury's not going to fight Gravik hand to hand. It's Gaia and Gravik. That's what it's going at. It's going there, and especially with Gravik killing Telos. I mean, it's the next episode is all the chips are on the table. The president's going to come to speed, and everybody's going to start realizing what's going on.
And then a showdown in episode 6.
Gaia's somehow going to show up out of nowhere, or she's going to hunt down Gravik, and there's going to be some big combat scene that builds toward this last episode like you were talking about before. But so far, it's not really going... This episode didn't go the way I thought it was going to go. I really thought it was going to keep going toward them grabbing more control over the narrative. And it feels like to me that what they had done in the first 3 episodes, building this momentum toward Gravik's people having this tight net grip of control, I feel like they just wasted it. They just played their hand and they just, we shot our wad and we lost.
If you're looking at a show called Secret Invasion, and so it was a secret invasion. They showed up, 1 million of them, and nobody knew, and that's the whole thing. It's like, why, I don't understand why you're off trying to grab the president. You have a Skrull in the White House, so why not just replace the president? Have somebody else replace this close, one of the Secret Service agents, and replace the president when no one's looking. It's like, it's like, for example, you were talking about nitpicking, and I could see how, because that is a fair point, because it can get to be nitpicking. And let's say, for example, the Hawkeye series. I really liked it, and I don't know many people that liked it. The She-Hulk, I watched the first episode. I just couldn't watch the rest of it. It wasn't for me. And maybe, Drake, you've talked about how it's very similar to the comics, right? And I think a lot of people missed that, because if you don't, it's difficult to even get in the mindset of a writer adapting a work of another writer if you don't know that original work. And so I fully understand that. And so some of the things, for example, you talked about not noticing particular things. Like I didn't notice that particular scene you were talking about. But, typically when I watch something, I watch it in different levels. Sometimes I watch things more than once, and I look for different things. But it just, to me, becomes so glaring and so unavoidable that I find myself distracted for the reason that you mentioned, the plausible suspension of disbelief. It's so, and maybe it's just because I'm not invested in any of these characters, and I don't think that that's necessarily my fault, because you're not going to find 20 million, 100 million hardcore Secret Invasion fans that are just going to be like, oh, I loved it, it was great. So you got to be playing to someone who maybe doesn't know what they're looking at and what they're watching. And I just say that the way that it's put together just doesn't give someone, a passing fan, which I would consider myself a little more than that, doesn't give me anything to, because man, look, I've watched a lot of stupid stuff. Babylon 5, remember that? Remember back in the day? I liked that show, and I don't know anyone that liked that show. And so I just think that as a showrunner, a writer, a director, you gotta have more.
I had a roommate that really liked Babylon 5. But I like for the show, I'm gonna watch to the end of the show. And it's a Marvel show with Marvel stuff in it. And I really like the Skrulls. And for what it is, for a TV show, it's entertaining. For us giving our opinion and where we're at and how it stacks up with other Marvel stuff that we've seen and what Marvel's capable of.
Maybe we should do in the future, do a ranking.
Of TV shows.
Well, series and that's just Marvel, not Star Wars. Just
yeah.
Marvel itself, the Marvel universe. Do a ranking.
But I just, at this point, I know that the word is that they want to use the Emilia Clarke Gaia character and use her further past this. So they've set that up where you're setting up this big confrontation where they can move her forward in the Marvel MCU, which is great. Where they brought Fury to this point, I don't know where they go with Fury after this. That's like, I mean, he is, unless in the next 2 episodes, he becomes like the man and saves the day. And I mean, he did kind of ride in on a shining horse there at the end and pull the president's butt out of the fire.
I just want to say really quickly, for example, right? If you were going to shoot that scene with all this stuff going on, why not film it at night? You can shoot it during the day, so it's not all that expensive to do it with night filming, and then adjust it and make it look like it was nighttime. And then your perspective of how close everything is. I mean, I'm just thinking, be a little bit more imaginative.
There was one piece of comedy.
It was like whenever Fury was carrying the president who's totally passed out, and he's just like holding him and he's kind of stumbling along, and then he flops over in his seat like he's. That the part?
That was entertaining. No, when Telos is half Skrull, half human, and the one SAS guy's like, he's an alien, shoot him, and I'm like, really? Just out of the blue looks over, look, it's an alien, we should shoot him. I'm like, and Fury's like, no, he's with me, and everybody's like, oh, okay. And he goes right back to. I was like, I mean, I'm not saying it It was hilarious.
It was laughable. It was like, it just totally, I'm like, I find myself going, what is going on here?
I'm like, yeah. But the thing that they didn't do at that point was there should have been scroll bodies littering the ground at that point. You had two helicopters that come down with scrolls in it. You had scrolls getting killed left and right, shot, and unless they all are super scrolls at this point. And right now, all I know of is Gravik and Guy are the only two that are super scrolls at this point.
Doc, do you remember in I think it was it was Endgame when Spider-Man has the gauntlet, right? And he's getting his butt kicked, right? And it's like he huddles down like she's shell shocked. It's like that was done so well. I know it was cinema. And so I don't really know what it goes into doing the versus TV versus, but I just think with a little bit more forethought, with a little bit more, you could have done a lot better with it. Because I don't enjoy, like if you made a movie and I didn't like it, I'm not going to enjoy coming up to you and saying, hey man, I really don't like your film. You know, I don't enjoy that. It's like when y'all have me start out, I'm like, I don't want to be the first one to throw a grenade because I want to like it. I want to enjoy it. I really do. Why wouldn't I not want to enjoy it?
Well, there you go. I mean, there's not much else to go into, honestly.
Yeah, right now most of it's waiting for the next episode to see where
it was a short episode, and we kind of covered all of it. It was pretty. Yeah. Not much really to cover there. Interesting. Very interesting. Well,
tune in next week where we answer the question: was the invasion a secret?
So. We can do the top 5 that we have planned.
Oh yeah,
let's jump into that. I'm curious. I'm curious. Who do you think should start? This we were doing top 5 female comic book characters
from Marvel or DC,
from Marvel or DC,
or hero
or human. Doesn't really matter. Or does it have to be just villain or hero?
No, it could be any female character from Marvel or DC. Top 5.
Top 5. So who do you think should start? I'm curious to see. I think you two are gonna have couple common names on your list.
Oh, I don't think so.
Oh, you don't think so?
No.
All right, who do you think? How do you think we should do this? I'm very curious. I'm very. You getting it ready?
Do you have a list, Bone? Did you get your list ready, Bone?
I wrote it down just in case I forgot the order that I did them. I'm curious to see. I know one of these names has got to be on your list. At least one of these names has got to be on your list.
One of them? Well, did you want to go first?
At least one of these has got to be on your list.
I don't know. We'll see. Well,
I think Bone should go first because last time I went first. Okay. And if you think that you said you don't think that it'll be the same, I think at least one of these names, if it's not on your list, I would be kind of surprised because we've talked about that character. But I'll let Bone go first.
So my hardest part was the order. And there's like 5. I could have done 10. I have 5 that didn't make the list, but you go first.
I'd nominate someone else to go first because I didn't think this up and I'm not really excited about it. So go ahead, Chief.
No, but you don't want to.
I don't want to go first.
Okay, Bone, I'll go first. So this is great. This is great stuff. So top 5. Number 5, I'm gonna have to go with Magik from the New Mutants. Number 5, she is just listen. Ilyana Rasputin is just a really badass character. She's just a freaking cool character with Limbo and all that, and just all of her abilities. She just is a really cool character, and her character is just such a badass character. Like her character just plays this. It's just plays this character that's just like, it's just cool, man. And she's just like this little. She's this like little like blonde small teenage girl, and she just like freaks out like the bad guys, and she's like the muscle. That's how badass her character is, right? And then my 4th pick has got to be Storm from the X-Men because she's just really powerful. I liked Halle Berry's performance of her in the X-Men, and her character is there's a lot of real cool stuff goes on. Her character is really powerful. She's got some cool stories. Her whole the dynamics between her and Black Panther is really cool. Like when we were going back and rereading Secret Invasion, there was a really cool tie-in story in Wakanda where they're trying to break into Wakanda, and basically at the end they capture Storm and the Black Panther because Storm comes in and is helping the Panther because gotta slow down because they're married, and she's is she the queen or the princess of Wakanda? I don't remember, She might be the queen of Wakanda.
She was the
And
queen.
they
She was
capture.
she was the queen.
Right.
You're talking about Storm?
Yeah, and they captured Storm and Black Panther in the last tie-in. The Skrulls do. This is Secret Invasion, and they're like torturing them, and then they find out it's not Storm and Black Panther. It's two Skrulls that they had put these chips in to make them wear their faces, and they were trying to tell them the whole time they're being tortured that they were Skrulls, but they had they couldn't because they were they had this nano device or whatever. Listen. That was a really cool scene. And then they had snuck in as the two guards that had brought them in. They take over the ship and they win the day. So really cool character. Third's got to be Rogue. I always like Rogue. Oh, I had a thing for Rogue. I like China, and she's got a really cool power set.
So you're going backwards. Right?
Yeah, I'm going backwards. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is the best.
5 was Magic. Then
4 is Storm.
then
3 is Rogue. Rogue is cool. She's got an interesting sort of power ability. That ability is really cool, where she can get other people's abilities. She kind of has their memories, and she's got that whole dynamic going on. She can fly. She's always been really cool. OG Rogue. I just liked Rogue. Number 2 is Jean Grey. Jean Grey is a badass. She's had some really cool stories. You know what? One of the most I was rereading it this week. There was a really cool story. And I can't remember which X-Men. It was in the X-Men title, but I can't remember which one it was. But Sabretooth had come to the X-Men for help. I come to Magneto for help, and they were keeping him in the mansion. Is it a mansion? The mansion. They had him locked away, and he was freaking everybody out. He was just being he's Sabretooth. He's a jerk, and Professor X is kind of we're gonna try to help him or whatever still, but he was just being this jerk to everyone, and they a Psylocke, all these people would come down there, and they were going over there trying to reason with him. Some of them were just going there and feed him, give him food, and he would just he was being Sabretooth, freaking him out, scaring him. So Jean Grey goes down and just throws this guy around this is badass scene where she just goes down there and just throws this dude around the room, and it's like I could kill you right now. And but she just but not even just that, but she's just because he's doing all this oh yeah, whatever, the kind of commentary to these people, you think you're whatever powerful, you like me, but Wolverine is blah blah blah, whatever it is. And so badass, right? That when he when he at the end, when Jubilee goes down and she sees Sabretooth later, he was tell Red she's pretty tough to come out here and do that. He was actually impressed for her. And this is freaking Sabretooth, who's a psycho murderer. And then number 1, it's got to be Catwoman. I mean,
I was about to say, you've gone this whole list, and they're all Marvel characters.
It's got to be Catwoman. Listen, there's all these other ones, but I'm just not as big on them as the other characters. Wonder Woman's cool, but I just never was a massive Wonder Woman fan. It's got to be Catwoman. She's really cool. She's awesome. And she's always got great stories with Batman. There's always this great back and forth, this great dichotomy between them. They played well together. And then they've done a lot of cool stories with them. They got married in the comics, and they had a lot of cool stories with them, and they just have a really cool dynamic. And she's a really cool character, man. I don't know, she's just really cool. That's me. That's my top 5, man. I enjoyed it. That was
Would you like me to go next?
Memory Lane.
Yeah, I don't really have a lot of female characters that I'm into, so I don't even know if I'll have 5. So go ahead.
All right, so I have 5, and I have 3 that I
honorable mentions. So we can do honorable mentions.
I have 3 that I couldn't get into my top 5, and after hearing you say what you said, I would say I have 4 honorable mentions, because Magik would definitely be an honorable mention, because I'll show you some artwork that I was a New Mutants fan from day one. And that's a character, Ilyana Rasputin, and Colossus' sister, that I've always loved. And the different art takes with her and her half-demon form and everything else. Fantastic. She was a character that wasn't in my sights, but I love all the artwork around her. So I love that character. In fact, the New Mutants movie, I really liked it.
I didn't know we could do honorable mentions. I would have brought some honorable mentions.
So Magik would be one honorable mention. Wonder Woman and Catwoman were both ones that I love both of them, but they didn't make my top 5. And the other one is Clea. And if you're not a Doctor Strange fan, you wouldn't know who Clea is. And she is totally badass. So my problem has been the order. And
I'm curious. You've already eliminated because I thought Wonder Woman would be on there just because how long you've been reading comics. She might be on there. You've already limited 3 names. Because Clea wasn't on my radar, honestly. I've read, but I wasn't a huge Clea fan.
So, yes, number 5 is Rachel Summers. Number 5 is Rachel Summers.
Really?
Yes. But you have to also understand that when I started reading comics, X-Men was the book. It was. I started really not reading comics, but collecting in the early mid 80s, and really got into it. And the X-Men was like king. And one of the first X-Men books I got was X-Men Uncanny number 150. And the cover of it is Magneto's. They're on Magneto's island, and this Russian sub was coming to attack the island, and he destroys the sub from miles away and sinks it. And the X-Men come onto the island, and he's got this device that neutralizes mutant powers. And so none of them have powers. But the cover of the book is Cyclops and Magneto face to face, and Cyclops is blasting him with his eye beams. So Cyclops was a character that drugged me into the comics. I'm like, dude, he's got lasers for eyes. As a kid, that was pretty cool. So I read the book and I really liked it. And then shortly after it, there's this psychic vampire named Selene that's a member of the Hellfire Club, and this chick with short hair, red head, and they're fighting, and her name's Rachel, and she's this badass telekinetic with all these powers, and she ends up with the X-Men, and you find out that she's Jean and Scott's daughter from an alternate timeline. And she went on to be very instrumental in a lot of storylines that went forward, and it tied into the Days of Future Past, but Age of Apocalypse, all this other stuff. And she ends up being a character in the future called the Ascani Mother, which is really big in the Age of Apocalypse storyline. But she was has part of the Phoenix Force in her. She's a complete badass character that's horribly underused, especially currently. So she being my number 5. My number 4 would be Felicia Hardy, the Black Cat. Black Cat is definitely number 4.
I knew that was gonna be on there.
She is so badass. What's even funny is in the current Amazing Spider-Man, Mary Jane's kind of snubbed Peter, and he's like, "We're not gonna get back together. This is just what it is." And he's with Black Cat right now, so it's kind of interesting. So now the top 3 are where it becomes difficult placing them in an order. So I would say the next one would be Poison Ivy. I've been a Poison Ivy fan from day one. Yeah, Poison Ivy is she has the pheromone power where she can actually get anyone. Like that Jim Lee run of Batman, Hush, where she and Harley go and manipulate Superman to send them against Batman. When you can just control any man in a whim, and when you got those kind of guys running around, she is, not to mention, just the whole person of her is just so cool.
She did the same thing to Batman in the Long Halloween story.
Yeah, she did.
We were talking about, yeah.
Yes.
That is...
just recently we acquired a copy of Batman 181. It was the first Harley Quinn, the first Poison Ivy for a buddy of ours. And the cover has Batman and Robin ready to beat each other up because of Harley. Because of Poison Ivy. Why do I keep saying Harley?
Because Harley's number 2, isn't she?
No. So number 2, this is where it's really, really hard because my top 2 are
interchangeable.
So I'm going to say number 2 is Storm.
Oh, wow.
And I almost want to put her number 1, but my number 1, you all both will understand why Storm is number 2.
No, we already know what your number 1 is. We know.
My number 1 is Gwen Stacy, Spider-Gwen. She is number 1. And it's 100% because they finally did something with Gwen Stacy after killing her back when they did. And I really just completely enjoyed every single thing they've done with that character. And I really, that character is awesome. But going back to number 2, Storm, I don't know, something about the controlling the weather powers and the time where she didn't have powers and then she had to get them again and all the different ups and downs that character's gone through and just the level of power that she has and all the things that she is capable. She's just always been a character that in X-Men that I really, really liked.
Well, hey, I did have one. It's not the one I thought it was going to be, but one of my list was on your list. Yeah. It's not the one I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, you had Storm. Yeah, I was like,
I thought for certain Magik was going to be on your list because we've talked about how awesome Magik is for a long time.
and to be
You forgot about it, didn't you?
I did. And I didn't want to just throw her on there because that would just be wrong. And I'm like, oh, I totally did. I've remind me to show you this. There's this 2-part series, this 2-part books. One's New Mutant Special #1. And if you're watching this, if you don't have it, haven't read it, download New Mutant Special #1. And it's an annual. It's an X-Men annual. I'll have to figure out the number, but it's an X-Men annual. It's the other part of it. It's this.
We'll throw it up when you figure it out in editing. We'll throw it up.
So anyway, Bone.
What you got?
This is a really difficult one for me because I've never really been drawn to the female titles. I mean, of course, everyone loves Wonder Woman, Catwoman, stuff like that when you're a kid. Those are great. But I would never pick up a Wonder Woman book and just read it. It's just not something that interests me. I mean, if there was an interesting, like, I'm like, wow, that looks really, I would read it. But so you went backwards or you went forwards?
Backwards.
Okay.
Backwards. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
I don't even know that I'm going to have 5, but I'll say one character that I really liked was, and I don't know if I had the name right. It's Nova. And that's the Silver Surfer's. She's the flaming girl with the Silver Surfer. When I was reading the Silver Surfer, I really liked that character.
I was thinking of the other Nova. Really?
The other Nova is a guy.
Yeah. So there's a Nova, female Nova.
Yes. So the Galactus, which is one of the Celestials, he is the Eater of Worlds, and he would have a herald that he would send out to find a world that he could eat, and that herald would come back and go, "I found this planet for you." Silver Surfer was one of his heralds. There's a whole crew of these characters, and Nova was one of the heralds of Galactus.
Oh, well, real cool.
I really
And
enjoyed her.
she is very cool. That's I cannot have a problem.
I really like Black Widow as well because of the Cold War was a big thing when we were growing up, and I really like the Captain America titles because of the tie-ins with World War II. I also like Captain America for the same reason, so I really like Black Widow because it's the Russian element. That's a really cool thing. And I'll tell you what though, well, I almost wanted to jump to #1 because I don't know if I have a 2 and 3, but I do like Harley Quinn, even though I've never read any of that stuff because I'm not a big fan of DC. But I like the idea of this crazy girl with the big baseball bat or with the mallet or whatever, chasing people around.
Puddin.
Yeah. And that to me is hilarious. Naming a thing Puddin. And I could just imagine. I probably would read some of those titles. Also, I really like Catwoman. I mean Michelle Pfeiffer. I mean Catwoman. Because who doesn't love Catwoman?
I don't know.
Ever since I was a little kid, I was drawn to like other comic book heroes like Farrah Fawcett. She was a great comic book hero back when I was a little kid. Farrah Fawcett was really popular. She was in the Charlie's Angels. That was back in the Marvel 72 run. Back in the volume 1 of Charlie's Angels. That was some great stuff. Anyway, #1, I would have to say this is a relatively new thing, is the Spider-Gwen. I just think it's a really cool angle. I think if they would have done something like that years ago. I mean, I haven't really read much of it.
Mary Jane is not on that list at all.
No, Mary Jane.
That's what I was expecting. I expected it to be Mary Jane.
I mean, what can I say about Mary Jane? It's like you can't put her on a list because it's like lists aren't worthy of Mary Jane. I just wanted to say that. Okay.
So she's your true #1.
She's his
one
and only.
All others pale in comparison to Mary Jane.
Okay. So yours was a top 6 list.
No, it's a top 5 with one towering above the others that shall not. I was going to try to keep her unenumerated, like the one who shall remain enumerated.
It's too late. Sorry. The space between 2 and 1 is astronomical.
Yes.
There are universes between 2 and 1.
Yes. But I'd say that I think as much as I love Mary Jane, I think the Spider-Gwen stuff has impressed me so much with what I've seen. And I feel like I missed the boat, because we're trying to sell, we're trying to get into collectibles, to get into the business aspects of it and talk about the different angles of it, right? And so it's like, just imagine these great titles have been out for what, 10, these have been going on for 10 years with Spider-Gwen. How long has it been going on?
Close. It's getting close. Not quite 10.
Close to 10.
If I would have stood up, the whole flock would have knocked me over. right over my head. So,
Man, that was interesting. That's an interesting. This was fun. I enjoyed this actually. I was surprised. I was almost appalled.
At me?
so
Both of you. I'm surprised. Well, but the explanation, because listen, it was forlorn. That's the word. All you kids out there can Google. It was forlorn that your number one would be Gwen Stacy and your number one would be Mary Jane, but it turned out your number. So I was surprised that your number one wasn't Mary Jane. And with yours, I was surprised that Magik wasn't on there. That was a big surprise to me. Rachel Summers, but I shouldn't be surprised because you're a big X-Men guy. But Rachel Summers was a surprise to me just because she's not such a big name.
So when I first started reading X-Men
And Poison Ivy.
and I really started going monthly, there was a lot of just kind of filler stuff going in. And the first thing that really came on, the storyline that really started going, because the Dark Phoenix saga, all that stuff had been finished. And they had this thing called the Brood that was like an alien thing. It just ended. And there was some cheesy Dire Wrath stuff going on. But they introduced Rachel and it built up to issue 201 where Cable's born. And then you have this whole, like, not too long passes, and you have this, the apocalypse story stuff going on, and it starts building, and the Scott Summers and Christopher Summers and Alex Summers storyline starts. And for those of you that don't know, Alex Summers is Havoc, Cyclops' brother, and Christopher Summers is Corsair, their father, who's the leader of the Space Jammers, that run around in space and hang out. Did I do that right? Space?
I believe it was Space Jammers.
Space Jammers.
Or maybe Space Jam. You mean with
Star Jammers.
Michael Jordan and no,
No,
you're talking about Star Jammers. I'm
it's
pretty
Star
sure.
Jammers. And it's like he's got this team of aliens. It's almost like Guardians of the Galaxy, a team of aliens that he's in this ship. And he's kind of hangs out with Alandra, the queen, the empress of the Shi'ar Empire. And they come back and forth. And he has no mutant powers, but he's a pretty cool kind of almost like Han Solo's type of swashbuckling, space-going guy in the comics.
I forgot to mention Gem and the Holograms. Does anybody remember Gem and the Holograms? I mean, was that a comic? Did that start in the comics, or was that a toy that was created?
No, that Gem was, and that was a comic, and that's one of your honorable mentions.
I had a huge crush on Gem when I was a kid. You know what I mean?
What about Dazzler? Did you like Dazzler?
Dazzler. I don't know what Dazzler is.
Dazzler.
That's not a
Do you
Dazzler.
know?
I do know who
Dazzle
Dazzler
my
is. I
memory.
do know who Dazzler is. I want to say, I'm still appalled. Listen, I want to say, you know what? Because as I think about it, Magik should be higher on my list. Like she might even be 4, or 2. I'm surprised she's not on the list. Listen, I was just reading it because listen, and you would like her too. She's like a female Wolverine, and not X-23. Like she's like so like I was reading this newer X just this week actually. I was reading this newer X-Men run. Where and I don't remember though, because I had just jumped in on it. I found a collection I was reading, and they had done a whole universe big crossover thing. The X-Men die, they're not really dead, and so they're come back and like they're trying to get like Scott Summers comes back and he's trying to get them back together, and there's a whole thing because he meets with Wolverine. There's a whole thing, but throughout the run, like they go and find like she shows up because they're getting them all together. And she's just like this mini. It's just hilarious how she's this mini Wolverine. They gotta like keep her in check because she just wants to kill everybody. So like she wakes, like they break in because the MRDs have like got all these mutants collected, right? All these X mutants, and they have them all imprisoned, and they have these collars so they can't use their powers. And so they break in, right? And like they to get them all out, and everything goes to hell. And so like the whole thing's exploding, it's blowing up, and so she's like, all right, I'm gonna go kill all these guys now. And they're like, no, we got to get out of here. And she's like, no, after I kill everybody. And they're like, no, but you got to get us out of here because you can use the portals. And they have to talk her out of going and killing all these guys. And they're like, listen, we'll kill them later. Wolverine's like, we'll kill them later. And so then like later on, there's a whole thing. They're trying to get information from this guy. Like they're trying to get information from this guy. And so who's the guy who can split into several different ones? Madrox. Like he's chasing the guy down and he hits the guy.
Hundreds of them.
He hits him with the bat or whatever, and he's like, we're gonna.
Is this like Dungeons and Dragons stuff or what?
No,
this is X-Men.
X-Men. And so he hits him
Madrox
with
is
the
a
bat or
guy.
whatever.
Every time you hit him, he splits into two of them.
And so so he's like he's chasing this guy down, and the guy like is like trying to get away or whatever, and the guy like he hits him and whatever, and he's like whatever, and the guy kicks him and he runs off, and so they're like he's talking to the other version of him. And they're like, no, we'll let the other guys, like they're the real interrogation crew, and it's freaking Magik and like this, and they catch him, and this dude like spills everything. She's just such badass character. Like everything's going to hell around her because there's like a beast, like Dark Beast is in it too, and everything's going to hell, right? And everybody's like freaking out, and she's just worried about like getting revenge.
So, have you seen the New Mutants movie that came out?
I did. It was a great movie.
Did you see?
I have not.
Bone.
You've got to
So-
rewatch.
You've
So
got
rewatch.
Is
Go
this
watch.
on
you gotta
DP?
watch it.
Disney Plus?
It should be.
I don't think so. No, it's not.
No,
Disney.
it's probably
something with-
Columbia.
Was there a show?
It's a Colombian. No, it's a movie.
it's a movie. It's there's a lot of underlying Easter eggs in there that if you follow X-Men, there's names on the Doctor's name, and because it takes place in like it's not a mental home, but it's like a sealed in
home for mutants, crazy mutants, basically.
mutants,
Dangerous
or people
mutants.
with dangerous
Mutant
people
teenagers.
that are in kind of like a asylum. So to
There's a
speak.
small little group,
Psych Ward.
basically
kind of
like a psych ward.
like a psych ward, and they keep referencing. Who do they keep?
Don't tell me about it. I'll watch it.
But if you're not familiar with the 5 primary New Mutants,
No, I'm not at all.
it would be a great introduction to them, and you just have to understand that Ilyana is Colossus's sister.
But in the comics, I don't know if she's that in the.
No,
in the
it's
series.
still Ilyana Rasputin.
Yeah, but I don't think they're related in the, and they're going to be related. They would be related in the universe. I don't know if that universe is going anywhere.
I got a pop culture question for both of you.
Okay.
Do you find yourselves more interested in some of these female characters when you see them portrayed by these really great actresses? For example, I didn't really care for Black Widow back in the day. Like even we talked about the Streets of Poison series, right? And it was like, okay, who Black Widow? Who is this person, right? But I find myself, because what's her name?
Scarlett Johansson.
She is an incredible actress. I mean, of course, she's very pretty, but I'm not talking about how pretty. I'm just talking about she is an incredible actress, and the subtleties and the way that she portrayed that character differently in all the different films that she was in. I find myself, and even Gamora, right, which I knew nothing about. I mean, if you would have asked me, have you ever heard of the Gardens? I had no clue that was even a thing. What is that? Is that a new thing? Apparently, it's been around for decades. But the character of Gamora and even the blue chick,
Nebula.
those are great. Those actors are really great. So the question is, to shorten it up, do you find yourself appreciating some of these characters more or less because of their portrayals by actresses?
Well, for me personally, that's not really applicable. The only character, because all of the characters that have been portrayed, mostly, specifically female characters, I wasn't really tied into. Like, I wasn't a big Black Widow fan. I'm not still a giant Black Widow fan. She's kind of cool. Whatever, she's there. But I wasn't a giant Black Widow fan. I wasn't a giant, who else is there? I wasn't big on Gamora, the Guardians of the Galaxy. I didn't, the comics, I wasn't reading those. I wasn't really into Nebula. All of that, I wasn't really giantly into that. Captain Marvel, none of those. The only one for me is Magik, but for me, actually, I watched the movie before I read any New Mutants because I wasn't really reading New Mutants. And I watched the movie, and I was really into that character. I really liked the actress. I like what she did with that character. And then I loved the character even more when I read the comics, and I learned all about how cool and badass that character was. So for me, I haven't really had, because then, you have all the OG Batman stuff, but there's none of them that really, to me, like, fulfilled any of the characters.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that I like a lot of the people that portrayed different characters in the movies. The person that played Catwoman in the Felicia Harding character in the Spider-Man movies, she was all right.
I mean, Black Cat.
Black Cat, Black Cat. I mean, Halle Berry's cool, but I mean, I wasn't like blown away by her portrayal of Storm. I thought she did a great job. But that didn't make me go, oh, I love Storm even more.
To me, they're two different characters, honestly.
Yeah.
Like when I look all that time, because this whole history of this one character, that history is almost different over here for me. And I've never massively had that issue of being other. I kind of do in ways with Batman, but even then, having that massive connection to this giant comic character and be like, or a story and being like, it has to be exactly the same on the screen. So for me, when I saw Halle Berry as Storm, it was a difference. When I saw Rogue, I was like, that's a completely different Rogue. But it was like, okay, it didn't really. It was two different characters for me.
It's almost like when to that point, you have such a body of work in the comic book and printed materials. And even when you get with X-Men alone, because of the amount of time that the newer X-Men like Rogue and Storm and some of the younger characters, not Jean Grey, because she's older, original character, but the others, they're written almost exclusively by one writer for such a long period of time. And now, after he dipped off the book, you have all these other writers. So the movies, to me, were almost like you had a different writer writing the book, writing the characters, and those actresses that are playing them is just a different writer's version of that character. But for me, the actresses, the ones that really have influenced me the most, are the ones from Guardians of the Galaxy. The Nebula and Gamora. I've always loved those two characters in print, but I will say that James Gunn had did such a fantastic job with those three movies and those characters that it made me realize just how much more I really appreciated those characters. And where Black Widow's concerned, Black Widow was like the ultimate sidekick. You know, like with Daredevil, with Captain America, and in the Avengers as well. And it wasn't a character that I really gave two blips about until she's the exception. Scarlett Johansson was like, oh.
All right. Well, that was an interesting question.
That was an interesting question. We could dig into that a little more.
I love how I said that my question was interesting. That's that.
Yeah, that was an interesting question. I mean, my questions were better, but no. But all right, next week we'll see you guys around. We'll see you guys downtown. Like, share, subscribe, follow, comment. Feel free to stalk Drake on any of the platforms he's on, or in person.